Okay, great. So we're still waiting on one more person, but we probably should get started because we have quite a bit to cover. But hi, and welcome to our digital storytelling with podcast workshop. My name is Catherine, and this is the first time we are offering this workshop in quite a while, mainly because there's been some growing interest in creating podcasts for classroom use. As I mentioned before, we are going to be covering quite a bit, and we do have people attending the session in person at Hearst Hall, as well as some also taking the workshop online. So I'll do my best to kind of answer whatever questions people may have. If you have questions, you can feel free to type it on the comment box down below for those participating online. And anytime, Louise, you have any questions, you can feel free to interrupt me. So mainly today we'll be going over one aspect of digital storytelling, and that is creating podcasts. We'll go over briefly what podcasts actually are, and then some tips and software you can use to record clear and good quality audio. We'll also go over one audio editing software that's popular to use amongst people who are creating podcasts, and that is Audacity. Audacity is free and available to download online, and I will show the link shortly for that as well. We will also go over different venues or avenues to share your podcast, because part of creating podcasts is being able to share it with others online. And then lastly, some final tips for creating podcasts, because it's definitely different from creating a video, as well as sharing information through articles or text, written text. But first, what are podcasts? So podcasts are basically digital audio files that can tell stories or provide information. It's also used by various radio channels to share music as well, and analysis, opinions on it. With that said, podcasts are really meant to be shared. You can definitely upload your podcasts online through Blackboard for your students, but the main idea is to share this information verbally, as people have done historically in time, but through the digital space. Interesting to note, podcast is a combination of two words, which is iPod and broadcast. Podcasts have been made popular by iTunes, Apple's iTunes, and you can see multiple podcast channels there as well. But for some pedagogical uses, you can, many faculty have used podcasts to supplement their course materials. For example, if they're sharing interviews they've done in the past through their field work or through information sharing sessions, and that they can share with their students. Many foreign language faculty have used podcasts, for example, setting up a web series, grammar points of the month, for example, or word of the month, where I think I remember one faculty had this series where she would go over a meaning of a particular word in Chinese characters, and as well as over the origins of that word. So it's very brief, and again, podcasts are meant to be fairly brief, not more than 10 minutes is recommended, unless it's a high quality NPR show, like All Things Considered or whatnot. But you can start once you have a great idea for a podcast. You can have these monthly, or if you're ambitious, weekly series on various research or course topics that supplement your research as well. And once it gets started, you can again gain a huge following from that, not only with your students or former students, but also within the academic community as well, which is great. So now I want to go over briefly on various methods to record audio. One tool I find especially useful when recording audio is really your smartphone. And I like the smartphone, using my smartphone to record audio because it's not only clear, but really convenient. You don't need to lug around, your laptop or buy an additional digital audio recorder. And you can actually use your smartphone, I find, to record audio in multiple places, and it still comes up with really clear quality. Obviously, some tips. You would want to choose a relatively quiet location, speak loudly and clearly, and usually smiling while you speak helps a lot with that. And one thing I found that was very useful when creating my own podcast is if you record in batches, it leaves room for error, and you can always edit them out eventually anyway. So I usually record not more than 30 seconds, especially if you're working off of an outline as opposed to a script. It helps a lot, and you can record it over and over and over again without having to rewind or pause. And it also certainly helps if you are trying to upload your sound files into your hard drive or whatnot. It's smaller, so recording in batches definitely helps. So one mobile app, I should say, that I recommend if recording via a smartphone. For the iPhone, the voice memo app actually works really well. It's really easy to use, very intuitive as well. And the icon is right there on the screen. It looks like that. But if you have an older version of older operating system, it might have a different logo, actually. But yeah. So the question is, would this app exist on iPads as well? Yes, I believe so. This is one of those standard Apple apps that are available in all their products. You don't have to download this app, and that's why I like it, because you don't have to worry about downloading a new app. There are multiple apps available as well that provide additional features such as editing, actually allowing you to edit your audio once recorded. But this particular app does not allow you to do that, but you have, if you're going to use a software like Audacity, you can do it from there anyway. So this is just good to take regular voice memos and whatnot. And again, really easy to use. And you can also upload or send the audio files from your phone directly to your email, or I believe one of your cloud storage drives as well. So it's easy to access once you're going to edit the audio with your computer. So that's what I found really helpful. For Droid users, I've heard a lot of good things about the Kogi app. And this one's a little more, you can do a lot more things with this app as opposed to the standalone voice memo app on the iPhone or iPad. But it is free, apparently really easy to use. I'm not a Droid user, so I can't really say for sure, but this allows you to take video as well as audio. So this might help for Droid users. Any questions about recording audio or any sort of audio app for smartphones? Again, I recommend using a smartphone to record audio because it's easier. If you're using your laptop, You can record audio using the Audacity software as well. The issue is you would need a good mic because a lot of times the built-in mics in laptops aren't really that great, and the quality might not be as clear as if you're speaking directly to your phone. That's why I like it. Okay, so, one thing I forgot to mention, there are some additional resources available on campus for recording. For example, there is a recording studio at the Language Lab. You can contact Gorky Cruz for more information on that, but from what I understand, there's an actual Mac computer as well as a really high quality professional mic. It looks like an actual recording studio. And it's soundproof as well, so that might be available to use. The AU library offers a bunch of equipment as well for faculty and students to record podcasts. I'm not too sure if they also have additional software for editing audio, but they might. And yeah, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about Audacity, the software. So why Audacity? Audacity is really popular to use for people creating not only podcasts, but musicians as well use Audacity to help with minor editing. It's open source and free and available for download via this link I have here. It can be used either for on a PC or a Mac. Linux systems works as well. The issue with Audacity is you would have to download additional if you want additional features, for example, more sound effects, or in this case, one additional add-on that I would suggest you download and install when working with Audacity is the, I don't know how to pronounce this, the LAME or the LAME MP3 encoder. The reason for this is that Audacity does not allow you to export your finished product, your finished sound files in MP3 formats, and it does not allow you to do that in WAV format as well. And it's primarily because of copyright concerns, but there's a way around this, and if you download this add-on and install it, you should be able to save it as an MP3. I guess I can also click on the link just to show you very briefly how to install it. So this is the Audacity website. It usually recognizes what sort of system you have. So when you're on the website, it tells you download Audacity for Windows or download it for Mac. So that's pretty convenient. And you can just click and install from there, which is fine. Same goes for the LAME MP3 encoder as well. That said, I think I will show you how to use the Audacity software. So when you open Audacity, this is the logo, and it looks like this. It doesn't look, it looks fairly daunting because there's so many different buttons and different features you can play around with. But once you get used to it, it's fairly easy to use and splice audio, move it around, edit it as you wish. I have some sound files already ready just for this particular demo. So let's say I have some audio recordings already ready to be edited. To import the files into the software, all you have to do is click and drag Or you can go to File, Import, Audio, and the particular folder and go from there as well. But click and drag, is fairly easy to do. So I have my audio file here, and if you notice, you can see, I guess already the sound waves. On the side here, oh, by the way, this gray area is where all your audio would be layered one after the other. So you can work with multiple audio files in one and create like one giant podcast from there. So that's what's great about Audacity is you can work in layers. It's very similar to some really powerful video editing software like Final Cut. Same way, you can just layer your multiple files together and make one. So on the side here, what's great is that with each audio file you import, this one particular project, you can adjust the volume so that, for example, if you have some background noise and you want to make it a little lower, you can adjust that individual sound itself. You can also adjust the sound to make it more left sounding or right sounding as well. And let's see what else we can do with this. Let's say, so let me play the sound file just for you to see. So the buttons on the top, pretty intuitive. Play, pause, stop. Record is where you would go if you want to record directly from your computer. But again, don't recommend doing that unless you have a good mic that's attached to your laptop. And when you hit record, it will create a new audio file that will be layered underneath your existing audio files, which is pretty convenient. So you don't have to worry about it recording over your working file. So I'm going to play this just to give you an idea. And this is an interview, sort of, or news show I kind of did a while back.
So I'm standing right outside a popular gastropub, centrally located in the Shadyside neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's hard to believe that such a hip and trendy location, as far east from the Silicon Valley tech circles, but not quite Boston or New York, is home to one of the most talked about mobile apps for education in the past year.
So that was one single batch recording, really clear. And again, I was using my iPhone, so using the voice memo app. So it's a really, really useful tool. This is your time frame. You can also zoom in or zoom out if you have to really look into where that particular position is at, your cursor. So what if we add another sound file underneath that? So for example, I want background noise because it sounds like I'm speaking in a room, which I was at the time, but I want to make it sound like I'm standing outside in the street corner. So I have a separate file here that's just the street sounds, which, by the way, I got for free. There are a bunch of resources which I'll touch upon later in the workshop that offer free sounds that you don't have to worry about copyright issues or whatnot, but really useful if you want some background noise. For example, cafe chatter or traffic, things like that. So as you can see, when I imported the second file, it's much longer than my initial audio file. And you can tell because my initial audio file is all squished in the top and this takes over in the bottom. And you see what I mean by layering? It's direct. When I import this new audio file, it is positioned right underneath my initial file. You can move it up or down as well if you want to. Except I don't really have a mouse at the moment, so I can't really show you. Maybe if I use this. Oh, well, okay, if you click on the top there, you can move the track up or move it down if you have to, but it doesn't really make a difference. It'll still play at the same time. So yeah, so the issue here is that this track is really long and I only want it to be as long as my file. So what do you do there? You can easily cut and splice any of the audio files you have imported into the software. To do so, you use the default selection tool and click from one end to the other. And just hit delete from your keyboard. So it goes away, really easy. And now what I don't like is that it's zoomed all the way out, but I want to see more of the sound file so I can make a more precise selection. So using the zoom in and zoom out tool right here, you can go ahead and do that. It's easier if you're working with a mouse, an actual mouse, because if you have the middle scrolly thing, I forget what you call it, if you hit CTRL and scroll up or down, it'll zoom in and out accordingly. So now I have my full sound file. Maybe I kind of want to get rid of this extra noise as well. Because it's a thinner line, you can tell that there isn't much sound going on at the moment, which is helpful that the software shows where the sounds are, actual sound waves. So if you delete it, it will start a little earlier without that pause. Let's say I want to delete this. What's really convenient is that the cursor can also automatically snap onto the end or the beginning, or in the middle if you have a middle partition, but I won't get into too much detail with that. So yeah, now I have my first sound file and some background noise. Now it will sound like this.
So I'm standing right outside a popular gastropub, centrally located in the Shadyside neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Some car horn.
It's hard to believe that's such a hip and trendy location.
Now it really sounds like I'm actually talking outside and not my bedroom. The issue, it might be that you want the background noise to be a little louder, or you want the audio, the actual speaking portion, to be a little softer. As I mentioned earlier, you can adjust the volume directly onto the actual sound file. So for example, I want to make my voice a little softer. So I can put it down a little bit and see how it sounds like.
So I'm standing right outside a popular gastropub, centrally located in the Shadyside.
So now it's more traffic and less me, but
it's hard to believe
it's probably not a good idea to do that. Just to show you how that would work. That's doable as well. So any questions so far concerning importing multiple audio files, or what you can do editing-wise thus far? Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to add some additional effects. So let me just put it lower and zoom out a little bit. Okay, so the good thing about Audacity is that it allows you to edit or add special effects to your audio as well. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to what is available, but if you click on the very top bar, there are multiple effects that you can do, including echoing, changing speed, so you can have that chipmunk voice if you put it really, really fast. But I tend to use, especially for podcasts, and you're working with music or multiple audio files, this effect, fade in and fade out, works really well. So I can show a demonstration for that actually. Let's say that I put my audio from the part 1 audio really low so you can hear the traffic. I'm playing the traffic white noise. And what's strange is that it abruptly cuts out in the end. Let's say you don't want that abrupt cut in the end, and instead you want it to fade slowly out of the picture. To do that, just highlight a certain portion of the end, go to Effects, and hit Fade Out. So, sorry, I should do that again because you were writing, but let me do that again. So if you go to Effects, you hit Fade Out. As you can see, the wave gets slowly smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets to a fine line, so that way it gently fades away from the actual, the whole audio. So if you want to play a sample and see that. It slowly fades away. That's a really helpful tool. You can do the same for the beginning. Say I put this back to normal volume, and I kind of want to, for some reason, fade in my speaking portion. So I position my cursor there.
Right outside a popular gastropub, centrally located in the shade.
So that's a useful tool. The fade in and the fade out are some of the popular features of this software. Now, let's say I want to import a new audio file. And again, I mentioned before that it's helpful if you record in batches, so that way you wouldn't have to worry too much about mistakes in the middle of the recording. And I, again, recommended, no longer than 30 seconds, maybe. I usually go up to 20 if I have to, but the shorter the better. And you can still add those files, and it'll still sound pretty seamless depending on how you edit them. So this is my part 3 of the audio, which is the continuation of my interview. I'm going to delete this part here because it's additional noise I don't need. One tip about recording that I forgot to mention was that you should normally hit record a few seconds before you start, so that way you have that time to kind of, you can edit out the extra noise anyway in the beginning. Okay, so now I added this new audio file, but as you can see, it's directly under all of the other layers of audio. So if you play it together, it's super loud and disastrous. This file was actually meant to be right after this initial audio, again, the second batch. Let's say I want to move this up, by the way, so it's easier and they're together. But I want it to play right after this first part. To do that, and you remember by default your cursor is the selection tool. To move audio, you would have to select the time shift tool, which looks like this double horizontal arrow right here. So once that's selected, you're able to move audio just by clicking and dragging. What's nifty again about Audacity is it knows exactly where the endpoint is, so you can just click and drag and it snaps to the end. So it's not like again, you can definitely make all these different batches of recordings and put it all together really seamlessly because of this feature. So now that it's at the end, I'm going to click my selection tool. Click my selection tool, put it right over here, just play from that point.
Past year. With over 20 million users and $18.3 million raised in venture capital to date.
So as you can see, it plays right after that file, and it sounds perfectly like as if I were recording it under one sitting. So that's pretty nifty. Another thing about the selection or the time shift tool is that you can actually merge two audio files in one as well. Again, you don't have to do this. I don't necessarily recommend you do, but if, for example, this file has a certain effect and you want it to take place on all these audio files, I guess you can put it as one, and it'll still play the same way. But I recommend just using layers. It also probably saves some file room as well, but it makes your file size a little smaller. But yeah, any questions about the time shift tool, layering audio, maybe even deleting certain parts? Are we good? Okay. Okay, so that is that. Let's say, for example, I want to now add an additional audio file, which is the background music. So, music and traffic, or music after traffic. In this case, I think I'll put it after the traffic. Okay, so I have a music file here. This was something that is from an album I have, by the way. I'm sure it probably has some copyright issues, but for this purpose, it should be all right. So again, click, drag, and it is imported. Now, do you notice the difference with the music files other than it's bigger? Yes, so it has two of these channels. I'm guessing it's because usually this is a more like background music. It's not really, it doesn't have any actual lyrics to it. But I'm guessing that when musicians work with Audacity, they can edit out, you know, the lyrical portion or certain instruments as well. But for our purposes, you don't have to be too concerned about the two different channels here. Again, the audio file is really big because this is probably a 4-minute song or something like that. But let's say I want to play this music or have the music start playing right after or right during my second portion of the audio recording. So I can just click and drag again with the time selection tool to have it appear or play right under that. I also want to make it not too long because my audio only exists up to that many seconds. So with the regular selection tool, I can click from the end. From the end of the file, of the first batch or the second batch, to the end of the music file, and just hit delete. Again, when deleting sound files, it's really important that you highlight the right file you want to work with. So you don't want to end up deleting the other files that you're not working with at the moment. But if you do make a mistake, you can always do Ctrl-Z or undo, and it works pretty fine. So now I have this music file, and if I play it,
With over 20 million users and $18.3 million raised in venture capital to date, Duolingo is poised to be a leading provider of language learning tools and translation services. A tough but remarkable feat for a mere staff of about 30.
Again, it cuts abruptly, and again, the music is way more overpowering than my actual speaking voice, so I wanted to make it a little lower, say maybe 9 decibels should work. This part concerns me, and it cuts abruptly, so I'm going to highlight it again, go to Effects, Fade Out, zoom in, maybe I want to fade it out some more. Which you can do, by the way. You can hit fade out as often as you want. Also, if you highlight the whole audio, for example, and click on the effect fade out, it'll work through that whole space. So I usually just like to select the end portion of the music file, usually where it's loudest or playing the loudest, and just fade out maybe a couple times. So again, I put it to about -9, use the fade out effect, and if I play it again, maybe towards the middle here, it'll zoom out so I can show you what's going on. Again, this is my voice, this is the music file.
Is poised to be a leading provider of language learning tools and translation services. A tough but remarkable feat for a mere staff of about 30.
So as you can see, it fades out a little more gently, and the music isn't as overpowering. So that's really nifty. Again, Audacity really powerful if you just want to edit individual files, but then save the project as one giant MP3 file or project. So any questions about adding music, changing volume, again, these effects. Again, you can play around with these effects. There's so many different cool things you can do. I've used the echo before. I've also used, I think I've used echo and then got really creative and repeated like the final lines multiple times. So if I hit copy and paste, multiple times. Ooh, no. That can help make it seem like it's repeating an end, kind of disjointed if it sounds cool. I don't know. Let's try it. This might not. It might sound kind of...
A mere staff of about 30. A mere staff of about 30.
So it's really, it's once you play around with it, it can get pretty intuitive, and you can do all sorts of funky things with it. So yeah, let's say you have this podcast project already finished and you want to save it as an MP3. You can easily do that by going to File. Oh, really important while you're working on the project, don't forget to save it as an actual Audacity project, because if for some reason your computer crashes, then you will have to start from square one. And we've all been there, and we don't want to have that happen way more often than it should. But yeah, so if you go to Export, and go to the folder you want to save it. Let's say this is podcast. And make sure you select MP3 files, hit save. Okay. Here you can change the actual metadata for the song so that when you upload it on iTunes, for example, then the title will show. By default, the metadata here is the song file I used because, again, it's copyrighted. Yeah, but you can go ahead and change that if you want. Hit OK, because it's a short file. It saves fairly fast. And now I have this MP3 file. And yes, so this file saves as an MP3 because I have the lame add-on, the lame add-on to this computer, which again is necessary for you to save MP3s. There's another add-on if you want to save the audio file as a WAV file as well. And again, Audacity does this because it's because of copyright issues, and these are outside developers who made these add-ons. So Audacity is not responsible for copyright infringement. That's what it means. So yeah, that is how you make a podcast. Really basic podcast with Audacity. Again, it's a very powerful software. It's free. The thing about making podcasts is, as with any other creative projects, is it could take time, especially if you're starting out. It takes time to kind of play around with these features, but again, we at CTRL are happy to help if you have any questions and want to pursue a podcast project specifically for your classes. Again, you can create these podcasts in MP3 format and upload them to Blackboard, or, as I'll show you in really briefly, you can also share podcasts through iTunes. So American University actually has an iTunes channel. I don't know if you're aware of it, but they do. And it is managed by the library. So you can easily upload your MP3 or WAV, I believe, files to iTunes under the AU channel, but it may take 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the file size and other things. And again, AU Library manages it, so if you have any questions and you want them to start a specific channel just for your class, you can approach them about that and they'll create it for you. Another useful avenue to share podcasts, SoundCloud.com. It's a little more social as well, so if you create a profile, you can have other SoundCloud users and other people play your podcast and follow you. This is also shareable via other social media platforms and blogs as well. And people can play it directly from their browser. So that's useful for SoundCloud.com. Additionally, you can use YouTube. But since YouTube is more of a video sharing service, if you upload a podcast, it'd probably be helpful to put like an image or something on there, and people have done that in the past as well. But I recommend SoundCloud and also iTunes under American U. And finally, some tips for creating podcasts that I should mention out here. When creating podcasts, I found it's really helpful if you outline your message just so you make sure it's all clear and concise. Creating a script or writing a whole script out, however, might not work as well because it doesn't sound as natural if you're reading from a script. And with podcasts, you want to sound as natural as possible. Otherwise, with people's attention spans nowadays, they might not make it to the end of the podcast. I also want to mention that there are different quality levels you can save your podcast under in Audacity. But high quality doesn't necessarily mean the best sound, because more often than not, high quality files tend to be larger, so it might not help creating a higher quality podcast when it's maybe more than 10 minutes and trying to upload it on Blackboard. It could be a nightmare just because it's a larger file size. Very briefly about copyright infringement. If you are concerned about, finding music or background noise and adding it to your podcast, there are a whole slew of websites signed under Creative Commons that let you download and use their material for free. You could even credit them as well. Freesound.org has a bunch of background noise as well as special sound effects that you might use, maybe some music as well. I haven't really explored that as much. But SoundCloud has some music that's signed under Creative Commons, so you might want to check that as well for background music. And lastly, Fair Use Act, which I've heard, has some specific leniencies for academics. So, for example, let's say you're doing an analysis of a song, a popular song, like a Shakira song for a Latin America cultural class, or what have you. If you're using music and you have to play her song on your podcast, and you're not making money off of it, then it's all right. you can use copyright music for that purposes. With that said, you know, like you can make many judgment calls here, but for the most part, if you're not making money off of it, if, for example, you're posting the podcast on Blackboard, so not many people are going to be listening to it anyway, then this is an issue that you probably you don't have to worry too much about. But if you have any questions about this, Lucas in CTRL and probably Laura have more information about what academics can and cannot do when it comes to copyrighted material. And lastly, I recommend, a lot of people recommend that your podcast should be kept at minimum 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. Again, depending on how interesting the topic is, how good quality, I guess, the sound file is, you don't want to make it too long because no one will really listen to more than that in one sitting. But again, if you're doing a web series or a series of podcasts monthly, it should be fine. 5 minutes each would be ideal. So yeah, that concludes the podcast workshop. I think went slightly a little over time, but I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions and decide to really pursue a podcast project, feel free to reach out to us at CTRL at any time. And I am most certainly happy to help with any of this. So, thank you very much.